And with the changes that were unveiled by the legislature last week regarding local entities' ability to regulate mask usage, in all honesty, that really didn't have much of an impact on Marion because unlike some of the other local governments, Marion had never actually taken the step to impose a mandate. We supported the one that Lynn County Public Health had put in place, but I think overall the feeling on my council was that that was really in the purview of public health, and that since we're not local experts on those types of issues, that it was putting us in a difficult spot to have to try to make medical determinations when, well, my city council has investment advisors and attorneys and professionals, but I do not have any doctors numbered amongst them currently. So um, as we navigate through this, we are still working through our phased reopening of what's going to happen with the city of Marion. So starting in June, any remaining city facilities that have not been open to the public will open to the public on a part-time basis. And in the case of City Hall, that's for a couple of different reasons. One is, believe it or not, we have folks working for the city now that have never worked for the city when the City Hall was open. And so we want them to kind of get used to that flow of traffic and get used to what it's like to be working underneath having the public coming in. We do plan on opening on Mondays and Fridays at first, because those will likely be our big days as far as people coming in for building permits. Cyclically, they tend to wrap up at the beginning of the week and then at the end of the week. During the last year, the water department has also relocated. And so the city council was kind enough to give us a budget for next year for adding a second part-time reception position, but they won't be starting until the middle of June. So as we head into July, assuming that there's no significant relapse in the positivity rates or in the prevalence of COVID around the area, will be reopened to the public fully in July. We are going to change our hours a little bit for the building. We're going to match up with the other city facilities. So we'll be open to the public from 8 to 4:30. But the workday for most departments will actually start at 7:30. That really gives us a chance, especially for folks like the building inspectors and the engineering inspectors. They can get their day organized, get all of their appointments set up, know what they're going to do for the work plan for the day before that first person really shows up at the counter and has questions to ask. So tried to honestly take advantage of this to improve some of our work practices and workflow and make some changes to the facilities. As far as the outside stuff, outdoor activities and events, anything that's outdoors, we'll still be continuing to recommend masks and definitely recommend social distancing, but we are not going to be planning on doing any kind of mask requirements. For people inside the facilities, we are still going to require masks at least through the end of June. And then we will see how the activity looks at the end of June and make the determination and whether that's something that we need to continue with.
Well, that's perfect, Lon. Thank you for that update. I know that's obviously top of mind for a lot of people still, and looking forward to you guys safely reopening to the public. And I know being a tenant of your guys is here. I think we're all looking forward to a little bit more, even more normalcy. So thank you for that update. So now kind of, staying with Lon here, let's kind of jump into, the next thing you expected in this year, right, Lon, was this old derecho that came through. Page 2 of the city manager handbook, right? The first pandemic, the second derecho, right? So just would love your perspective, and I know you've shared this many a times, but maybe just for our group here, kind of this story of recovery and how you guys have been able to manage, not just, being able to do your day-to-day work and meet the needs of our growing city, but also just, taking on this new hat of, recovery manager, right? I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but maybe just kind of talk us through how you've been able to be resilient and your staff's been able to be resilient, and kind of just continue this, update on our city as we all continue to navigate the changes from this this derecho. And I'm going to go ahead and share. There is, we have our Marion messenger here that I know it was sent out to all Marion residents. There is a Trees Matter page on here. So I'm going to go ahead and share the direct link to this. That's kind of through our urban forestry program, kind of talks about post derecho frequently asked questions. Definitely a great resource just to kind of understand the city's role in some things, and then also just replanting and all that. I know Lon will kind of touch on some of these things too, but also wanted to share some resources as we go as well. So Lon, maybe just a little story of recovery from your perspective, and kind of some ongoing things that you guys are still working through.
Sure. So we're about at this point around 95% done with the main debris removal around the city. We completed the debris removal from the right of way, I think, as everybody probably knows, mostly late last fall, although we've still had some stragglers show up every now and then. And then we started to focus on the debris along our waterways. That's pretty deliberate. Marion has had some significant flooding events. I think the worst one was in 2002, but we've had several since then, including 2008, 2010, 2013. And so during that period of time, we made a ton of improvements to those waterways, improving channels, getting debris out of it, making them operate better. And then the derecho came along and kind of undid all that work. So we've been going along in those sensitive flood prone areas and really making sure that we're getting that debris out of the way so that the next time we have one of those big gully washers, it doesn't do more than it would have before the derecho. Some of the last things that we'll have to work on would include doing the stump removals out in the right of way. There's quite a few of those that we'll need to have completed. And then there's a small amount of areas where sidewalks were damaged by trees that fell in the right of way. And the council just approved a cost sharing program for us to be able to assist homeowners with the cost of making those repairs. We're not going to try to do that on our own because it's frankly going to be a lot more efficient for the homeowners to do it according to their own schedule, and rather than us trying to do one giant contract and get them all only to show up and find out the homeowners already had it done. We'll just reimburse homeowners for expenses related to doing those repairs. So from the physical side, as far as the initial response, we're in pretty good shape. Of course, then the focus got put on what do we have to do to replace our forest canopy. We lost between 35 and 40% of it in the initial round, and there's another 10 to 15% that's probably not going to survive the next 5 years that will ultimately have to be replaced. And unfortunately, when it comes to something like this, there just is no short-term solution. Trees take a long time to grow, so it's a multi-generational impact to reforest the community. We've put together partnerships with several different groups. One of the first ones out of the gate was with the Monarch Research Project that sponsored providing trees to city employees, and then city employees, if you didn't have room on your lot to put one in like me, you could provide them to neighbors and friends. They just had to agree to take care of them because we want their survivability rate to be really high. There's other resources through some of our partner organizations that we've put together, like with Trees Forever. Hy-Vee has sponsored programs to help reforest the community. So that's going to be a big thing for us. If there are any silver linings that came out of the derecho, one is that it let us deal with the ash borer problem and the ash trees really in one fell swoop, rather than the next 4 to 5 years like we had initially planned. So even though it was a devastating thing for the community, it does give us the opportunity to diversify our species, make sure, for example, that if we've got trees planted underneath power lines, that they're ones that are appropriate for that type of environment. So we can make some pretty significant improvements that we probably would not have been able to do otherwise. On the physical infrastructure side, we're getting to the point that most of our building repairs in the parks have been done. We still have the roof at the Thomas Park building that was damaged that needs to be replaced, but the depot repairs are essentially complete. We've got most of the roofs replaced on the pavilions and things that were damaged. A few little stragglers here and there that might need to be repaired. Waiting for parts on some of the play sets in various parks. There's like many of the things in the building materials industry, there's a pretty significant backlog on availability for replacement parts. So we'll get those as they come in. We've got a few city facilities that need more extensive repairs, most notably the public services building, the existing one that we just contracted with a construction manager to come in and help us to do the repairs to that, because that one is going to take a lot of work.
Perfect, Lon. No, thank you for that update, both on the ongoing pandemic and our ongoing derecho cleanup and recovery. Well, I want to, I have a couple more questions for Lon, but I do want to open it up to the room and the group here to make sure that, if there's any questions related to what you've heard on pandemic or derecho updates, go ahead and ask, or if there's a burning question that you joined us here to be able to try to ask or get a better answer on that we haven't heard. Please go ahead and unmute yourself and let yourself be heard. We'd love to provide this opportunity to ask questions and inform you. So I'll be quiet here for a minute or so and see if we have any questions or comments from the group here. All right. Well, I will go into kind of this reforestation you kind of mentioned, Lon, plenty of. And I know kind of looking at programs and moving ahead and kind of sharing what I shared through our urban forestry program. I know there's a lot of good resources there. And I know, when will the replanting begin, right? It's already begun. Is there like a specific, like with our arborist, as far as he's wanting to replant so many years? And I know there's an ongoing tree planting program that you guys are already do, right, as far as your usual assessments. But with this derecho, has there been like a working with him, whether it be in the city right of ways or within the city parks, as far as this intention of replanting and kind of maybe talk us through how the derecho affected the plan there and an update to it and all that fun stuff with, like you said, obviously losing 40% initially and then another 10 to 15, right? You're looking at, over 50% of our tree canopy, which is obviously significant. I mean, we drive around and I think everyone in this group probably notices a new section of trees that they maybe didn't see was missing. So just maybe curious as far as how that's gone and kind of the plan moving forward there.
Yeah, I'd say at least initially, one of the challenges is finding trees. We like to plant them of a certain caliper size, and availability has really been up and down because not only, of course, are we looking, but Marshalltown is looking, Tama is looking, Cedar Rapids is looking, private individuals and private businesses are looking. So maintaining a resource for being able to have good quality trees has at times been a little bit of a challenge. Urban forestry is really working front and center on the recovery plan for this. And at this point, they haven't presented the entire plan for what they would intend to do to the city council. But I can pretty confidently say that it's going to be a combination of two different things. They'll focus initially, I think, on some of the high visibility areas in the parks. For example, during our community or employee appreciation week, we planted over 40 trees out at Lau Park leading up to the urban forestry building. And then also on making trees available for the public right of way so that we can start to replace some of those, especially in Marion's older neighborhoods. The loss of having those tree lined streets just really changed the character of entire areas of the community. And the sooner we get started on replacing those, the better that will be, because those are going to take a while to replace. We have to be a little careful with it. We can't do some of the tree right of way ones until the stumps are removed. And then, of course, depending on what species of what was there, it may impact whether or not a new tree will survive. So there's some continued evaluation that has to be done. And I don't profess to be an expert in it, but for example, I know that walnut trees are very hostile to new growth. So you can't just automatically go in and replant if there was a walnut tree out there. So it's going to, in some cases, have to be a little bit individualized as far as what we do for the community in some of those areas. Even before the derecho, we had talked about some programs because of the impact that the emerald ash borer was going to have. Our long-term plan had been always to go into providing opportunities for people to acquire trees privately and put them on private property as well with a cost match from the city. And I'd say that's still on the table, but it probably would be a later phase of the program after we get through really the public facing piece of the recovery. We had a budget for that utility, and we were working on the Emerald Ash Borer side of it and had everything really built around that. And this, if we had allowed it to, would really kind of blown a big hole in it. But we were able to reallocate some of those dollars, which amounts to about $75,000 a year that can go towards reforestation instead of deforestation like it would have before.
Oh, thanks for that update, Lon. And just something that I maybe I keep seeing or hearing or want to understand a little bit better about tree clearing. And I know you mentioned along Indian Creek. I think there's been a lot of comments around that Boyson 10th Street there. I mean, a lot of tree clearing there and clearing up. Is there anything planned for there as far as, is this kind of part of the trail? Just kind of maybe give us a little more perspective on the bigger cleanup there than just from the derecho, just so maybe people have a better perspective on what's going on in that area.
Yeah, and any areas that we'd have planned for future projects, like the future trail that would parallel Indian Creek, we had the opportunity to go in and get some of that area cleaned out. So we would intend to maintain that, so it's easier to build on when we get around to doing that project. But everything that you see removed is actually in the flood zone. So it would be within what FEMA would consider your 5-year flood area, your most impacted properties. The one in particular that you're talking about that's kind of bordered by 10th Street, Indian Creek Road on one side, and then it would be, I guess, 29th Avenue on the north, is a little bit unique. That area actually qualifies partially as a forested wetland. And so it's got different rules about what you have to do in there. You can't just necessarily go back and plant particular species because the Corps of Engineers gets involved on what you have to do to manage those particular areas. Frankly, until we did the 29th Avenue Bridge project, I did not even know forested wetlands exist until they informed us that we had one sitting back there.
No, that's interesting, right? I think, everyone always sees these different things going on, and kind of trying to, piece those together is always interesting. So just wanted to maybe clarify some thoughts and other things going on in that area. So thank you for that.
And that area in particular, I'd say we're only able to do the waterway cleanup if we're protecting private and public properties. And that area being right next to the bridge on Central Avenue was an area that's particularly vulnerable because it would not take a ton of debris coming out of that area to block that bridge and really give us a lot of fits in that area.
Yeah, that, like you said, you think about that water flow, and it makes sense now that you say that, but I think driving by it, it's like, what's going on here, right? So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying there and appreciate that knowledge. So I'll continue here. I got a couple more questions for Lon, and then we'll jump into Amber and Tammy and Brooke, and get everyone excited about the events going on this summer. So now I guess, Lon, as you and the rest of your office kind of continues to, plan for current projects going on, or future projects that all have been either ongoing planning or thinking about. What do you see an effect of this derecho? And I know there's a cost effect of it that the city is on the hook for, as far as cleanup goes, that the state and FEMA do not cover. So understanding that impact, what do you see, 5 years, 10 years, and then even, any effect on current, and kind of how that impacts your future planning, as far as from either a budget perspective, or, we did, you mentioned doing that cleanup at the right time, and understanding that there's other things that, impact that as well. So just kind of curious as far as how this has affected your specific planning for future and current projects.
Yeah, so with this one, we did go out and set up a line of credit because we weren't sure. When you're going in and looking at these areas, you're trying to estimate how many cubic yards or tons of debris that you have to take out, but you don't ever really have an exact figure until you start moving it through the monitoring stations and see what areas are actually going to be considered eligible. So when we went in, our initial estimates were that the total cost of the project would be as much as 43 million, which would mean that we would have needed to come up with $6.5 million locally. We always try to estimate costs aggressively and revenues conservatively. And so that would have left us with needing to come up with about $6.5 million. We have a plan to apply about $3 million of cash from our cash reserves towards it. And then we were looking at financing the difference. As time has gone on, and especially as we started doing our second series of bids on the waterway projects, we were getting better numbers than we had been estimating. And so as of today, I'm cautiously optimistic that that number is actually going to be lower than $2 million. And that would put us in a much better position as far as what we would have to finance. So at this point, even though we set up our line of credit, we haven't had to exercise it at all. And that's good because it helps us to minimize our interest costs for carrying the local share on this project. Just it's great that you can get reimbursed for 75% of project costs from FEMA and 10% from the state, but it's kind of a laborious process. It takes about 4 months from the time that you close the project to the time that you get reimbursed, and contractors don't like to wait that long to get paid. So you have to have a way to pay them in the interim until you get reimbursed by the federal and state governments. So assuming that we can keep it in that $2 million range, that puts it down to about $300 per household in the city of Marion for the local cost impact of the derecho. And so anytime you do something like that, it has an impact on what you're going to do for capital planning, because there's lost opportunities there that you could have used the other dollars for. For example, even though we're going to be using $3 million out of our reserves, which helps us to prevent having to borrow money for the disaster recovery, that's lost opportunities to use those dollars for capital projects. And so we have to look at what do we need to do to be able to build those reserves back up to that level for the next derecho or whatever the next disaster turns out to be. I would say that, we've got a long history of prudent planning and being very fiscally responsible when it comes to those reserves. And this is exactly why we maintain the amounts that we do. You just never anticipate something of this scale coming through the community that really kind of outstrips everybody's ability to be able to handle it without having to use a little bit of financing to be able to cover it. The biggest, though, initial impact anyway, has just simply been on staff capacity, particularly on the Public Services and Parks Department. Both of those departments usually have very well-developed work plans. And in the case of ones like Public Services, that's going to include a lot of things like street patching and curb repair through the regular construction season. But when you have to allocate 6 of your staff to debris monitoring, you lose the ability to do some of those ongoing maintenance projects. And what we really have to watch is that if you look at, for example, the life cycle of a street, if you miss a window for doing certain types of maintenance, it might seem like a minor inconvenience now, but you can lose 10 years worth of life on that street. So trying to navigate, making sure that we still have a robust work program going on while acknowledging that we still have significant work to do. And that takes people to do it is one of the biggest issues that we've got. And then we'll have to see how it plays out for urban forestry in particular. They had a very well-developed plan for community emerald ash borer response, but really ended up front and center with a lot of this, and will be because of the reforestation projects, as it really kind of shifts from being a public works emergency at Public Services to being a parks and urban forestry recovery.
I think that's a good perspective, right? From all different angles as far as, how this has impacted and how it will impact us going forward. So thank you so much, Lana. Appreciate your time and your words. And I hope everyone learned a little bit today and has a little more knowledge going forward about our ongoing recovery and also some appreciation for that city staff and the work they're doing and the ongoing recovery. So make sure if you're out and about at the local parks or wherever you're out and about enjoying a beautiful day like today, if you see a city worker, make sure you're thanking them for their continued work to one, help us recover, but also keep us moving, right? I mean, I think that's what it's about is really making sure we're thanking everyone for the work they've done over this last year. And speaking of thanking, I want to again thank Amber, Tammy, Brooke here for joining us. Again, let's jump into the fun stuff here now. No offense, Lon, but now let's look forward to getting everyone back together. And specifically, we'll jump in here with Amber. And like I mentioned, she is the communications manager with the city of Marion. I'm going to go ahead and give you control here, Amber. I know you had a couple things you wanted to share. So kind of let you jump into things as far as maybe this community calendar and looking forward to some things coming up here and here locally.
Thanks, Brady. And thanks everyone for your interest and being part of our community and all the exciting things that happen. I know there are several faces I see that play a pretty important role. Just kind of a quick high level overview. I mean, as you can imagine, like with everything, we're just kind of turning event planning on its ear. And normally we plan for months, sometimes 6 to 8 months to make something happen. And this year, just based on the ever-changing circumstances, we're kind of waiting until the last possible minute sometimes in order to pull things off. So we certainly appreciate flexibility and understanding and just kind of following along on our website, our social media channels, all those places where we can kind of get the latest information out without a lot of advance notice sometimes. But like Lon mentioned, we want to be able to host these events, but we want to do so safely. So really kind of driving home that masks are optional, but encouraged. We want to promote the social distancing. If you head out to Lau Park this year, you might notice a beautiful lattice work pattern mode into the amphitheater space. Again, just to kind of provide that visual and help remind people that, let's keep a little distance between one another so that we can all be comfortable if we choose to come out and enjoy the events. Certainly encouraging people to stay home if they don't feel well, and hand sanitize, use hand washing stations frequently. So I wanted to share the community calendar. We've had a few events already. The Marion Farmers Market kicked off in early May. I think they've been having good participation each week. And it's that weekly market that will run through the end of September. We hosted Great American Kites for the first time in the middle of May, and it was quite an impressive scene. The weather wasn't the best, but something we certainly hope to bring back in the future and build upon going forward. We will kick off Moonlit Movies. The first one will be next Friday. This Friday, May 28th at Lau Park. And we just recently announced those titles. Doolittle, I believe, is the first one. And our Parks and Recreation Department does a great job hosting those outdoor movies and some concerts. I'll just touch real briefly. Marion by Moonlight and Uptown Get Down will both be moving out to Lau Park this year. And that's kind of a twofold reason. One, there's a lot of construction happening in Uptown adjacent to the park. And two, to promote social distancing and give people a little more space to spread out. So that will be happening Thursday nights in June, and then with Uptown Get Down in August. And I'll let Tammy talk more on that. Sunrise Yoga will be back the first Saturday in June, and that will run through the end of August. We were able to make that happen last year safely, and we look forward to kind of having the same protocols in place and just really bring back a program. I think we're 7 or 8 years now running, something that began as part of the Blue Zones initiative back in the day. I won't steal the thunder of the Chamber and Uptown and talking about their events, but the other thing I did want to talk about was the outdoor Music Under the Moon concerts that the Parks and Recreation Department hosts. We have a great John Denver tribute performer coming in June. We're hitting all the musical genres this year. In July, there's a boy band. I'm going to space on the name of it. I have the poster here. A boy band review is what it's called.
Boy band review is what I was just going to say.
And then Saturday, August 14th, Arch Allies will perform at the amphitheater. So some that have bigger regional appeal, and we're excited to host those out at Lao. So as I mentioned, things are changing all the time. And our core group of event planners, I have a part-time event coordinator working on these things, the Park and Recreation Department, and then the Chamber in Uptown. We all work very closely together to, kind of bring everybody onto the same page and try and do things as seamlessly as possible to promote Marion and that quality of life that we enjoy. So we are still working out the details for fireworks. It was such a huge success the first year that we hosted it, that frankly, it was pretty scary to think in July having 5,000 people come to Lau Park. So there will be an announcement coming in the next couple of weeks, I would say. But it's looking like that will more than likely be early in Labor Day weekend, just to kind of get past this initial change of protocols and the latest guidance. So hopefully allowing us to have a more normal event at that time. Just a couple other things I wanted to touch on, and just really kind of promote all those things here in Marion, things to do close to home that you might not think about all the time. We have an awesome trail system, and I know there are some connections that are closed right now due to construction and a future connection between Cedar Rapids and Marion. But I will share this with Brady after the fact so he can share it out with the group. Just kind of keeping up on the Linn County Trails map. Our network of trails is really expanding and expanding quickly. So if you're into biking or want to get out and explore a different part of the area, this might be a great resource for you. Also, if you're into art, we have a really cool sculpture trail at Lau Park with, I'm not going to know how many, probably 8 to 10 art installations along the trail. A new one that the Marion East Cedar Rapids Rotary just installed in the last year. So there's the trail that kind of runs from the east end to the west end of the park, and certainly a lot to explore there. The Marion Pool will be opening this year, so that's very exciting for those families and kids that missed it last year. So that will open Memorial Day. And then you may have seen, as you've been driving through Marion, our military tribute banners are up, and we are going to have the map of their locations very soon. But it's definitely a point of pride and show of support for those that have served our country. And it's a program that I get to work with Brooke at the Uptown Marion office on. The Public Service Department are the ones that hang the flags and the banners. And it just kind of makes your heart swell with pride as you drive through with everything in place. So a lot of those things, just, if you have family coming into town to visit or want to enjoy or explore and find something new, I certainly encourage you to kind of check those things out. This other thing I'm sharing is the Cedar Rapids visitor guide, and they did a great spread on Marion this year, and kind of ties into just some itineraries. What are 7 or 8 things to do in a day to explore close to home? And I think later we'll share essentially the same thing, but a few different ideas incorporated. So one was done pre-derecho and one was done post-derecho, just to kind of accommodate for some of those businesses that were impacted. So, but again, I'll share these links with Brady, and hopefully if you're looking for what to do, these might be a place to turn to explore.
Perfect, Amber. Thank you for that summary of happenings, updates on events, and understand that, we're like you mentioned, just trying to bring people and events back safely and cautiously, but also wanting to try to figure out how to bring everyone back to this normalcy as well. So thank you for everything you and your team do, and look forward attending a few of these events, hopefully all of them if I can. But yeah, definitely looking forward to wearing these kids out. I mean, I'm just glad to be having these normal conversations about things going on in the community and opportunities to try something new. So thank you for that, Amber.
You're welcome.
All right, now we'll jump in with Tammy and Brooke here from the chamber. I kind of first want to tee them up and let them talk about. They have some exciting news as far as an office move that they have done and kind of aligning with a tourist aspect that they are starting to take on and really bring to life here. And in my opinion, a perfect time to bring that to fruition, right? With our coming out of a pandemic and the derecho, we want to start getting people around Marion. So maybe just Tammy, I'll tip it to you here and let you take it from there. Kind of introduce yourself and talk us through all the exciting things you guys have going on.
Thanks, Brady. So like Brady said, I'm Tammy Schlamp with the Marion Chamber, and he did allude to the fact that we have relocated our offices out of City Hall to the historic district on 7th Avenue. We are in 1070 7th Avenue, which is directly across from City Square Park. That is allowing us to move forward with part of our strategic plan, which is focused on tourism here in our community. We will have a small retail space at the front of our location where we can showcase different Marion type items. People are always calling and asking for things like postcards and Marion branded items, and those have been hard to find and hard to come by. So we're looking forward to not only having those items for sale, but just having a storefront, a face where people can come to get information, whether that is somebody who's visiting the community or just be a stop for our residents who have questions. With the opening of Prospect Meadows, we are just seeing an influx of people from outside of the area. And we want to make sure that we're being a very welcoming community and having a location that is right here on 7th Avenue where they can get information is really important as we move forward with the success of Prospect Meadows. Do you want me to keep going, Brady, or?
No, go ahead. I appreciate that update. I think we, I don't know if everyone's seen the sign or not or been through there. So I was just, wanting to make everyone know that I'm excited about getting some Marion swag. So I can't wait till that's up and running and excited for you guys and the new venture there. So thanks for that. Yeah, maybe just touch on real quick and just, as you guys navigated this same derecho and pandemic as all of us, just maybe from your chamber perspective, how you guys are able to continue to serve your members and the community and I know events moving to Zoom like we're at now, right? We're a way that you guys were able to take advantage of that, but maybe just talk a little bit about how you guys are able to continue to serve the community.
Sure. So I'll start first with the pandemic. And I think we can all agree that what the very most important thing was right away was disseminating information. Information was coming into all of us so fast. And one of the things that, our at Medco as well as the chamber is just making sure that we were communicating with our membership and our investors at getting that information out. So that in a consumable format, some of it was really hard to understand and it changed a lot. So first and foremost, that was a huge priority. Second thing, assisting our businesses through this, especially our restaurants who were so hard hit, and trying to come up with some unique opportunities to help them through that. One of them was, just starting some social media pages so that they could communicate with their customers. They also were changing formats and how they serve their customers. And being able to give them an outlet to do that was really important. We did that through a Facebook group called Curbside Carry Out, and it worked really well. Another program I'll touch on really quick was Community Cash, and I know we have some folks on the call here that donated to that program, and I thank you so much. That program was intended to immediately infuse some cash into our restaurants. Sponsors donated money to that, and then in turn we're able to give certificates out to customers or their staff, however they wanted to, and then we encouraged those recipients to match that money when they went to spend it. Again, that just helped some of our restaurants get some immediate assistance. As we move into derecho and talk about events a little bit, our priorities shifted a little bit after derecho hit. We were asked to get a food pantry up and running, and really that was a response in immediate community need. It was apparent right away that we were going to have some food insecurity and needs that needed to be taken care of right away, as we all, lost the contents of our refrigerators and freezers. So we spent about 15 days in a temporary food pantry over at the mall, and just an outpouring from the community as far as volunteerism and donations and being able to assist those folks that are in need. Through all that, events did continue to happen. We produced 10 free community events with the help of our platinum partners. And as we started working through that, it was important to us that we just didn't cancel everything. I think we can all agree that just having something to look forward to, in whatever format that it was exciting, and we wanted to make sure that we could continue that through the pandemic and following derecho. Farmers markets continued. We were able to do that based on guidance from the state and some of our local public health. And so those went on. They were a little bit smaller. They looked a whole lot different, but we were able to get, fresh food and products into the hands of the residents here in Marion. Uptown Get Down looked a whole lot different. We took it on the road, and unfortunately we were only able to get one of those before damage to our parks kind of prohibited that and priorities shifted. The last one that I want to touch on, which I think was a huge hit, was the Santa wave. Traditionally, we hold a very large Christmas in the Park event, which couldn't happen as it normally would, but we also took Santa on the road and just did a parade, 3 different routes through town, and it was just so wonderful to see all the smiles. Residents were able to come out to their driveway and just wave at Santa and Mrs. Claus, and I know they had a great time. Huge shout out to the Marion Fire Department for decking out their fire truck with lights and just putting smiles on people's faces in a time that was really tough. As we move forward this year and things are continuing to open up, we are looking at more of a regular event schedule. And I know Brady has a link to the event poster, and he can share that either now or later. Oh, there it is. So you can up in your chat. So farmers markets are going on this year. They are moving a little bit just to the north of the park, but we're excited to bring back music and programming for our kiddos. Amber mentioned Uptown Get Down is moving out to Lau Park to allow a little more space for people to spread out. And I think she touched on the planning process of events a little bit, and I just wanted to make sure to explain to people that when we're planning these events, we're doing it in January and February, and making choices with the information that we have at the time. I mean, in January, we had no idea if we'd be opening up in June or not. So that, coupled with the construction in the Uptown area, especially for Uptown Get Down, led us to moving that event out to Lau for this year. Yeah, I'll toss it back to you, Brady, if you have some more questions.
Yeah, let's bring Brooke into the fold here and just kind of, I know I threw up the calendar of Uptown, what we're calling our Uptown events calendar. and maybe just provide kind of what's going on uptown. And I know I keep hearing about this streetscape, right, Brooke? And I know you and your group have been preparing for that, and just trying to continue to also operate as normal as possible with coming out of this last year as well. So maybe just some specific comments on what's going on uptown, and then how we can all continue to support, whether it be this Eat, Drink, and Be Marion, the Uptown Marion markets, whatever else is specifically going on in the Uptown area that we can make sure we're supporting.
Yeah, thanks, Brady. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. We have a lot going on this summer, and the construction is going to play a big part in that. We're going to try to keep having events in Uptown to get people coming to Uptown and realizing how easy it is, even with construction, to come support our local businesses. So some of our events, only a few of them, will be out at Lau, as Tammy mentioned. Uptown Get Down will be out at Lau this year, but that is temporary. We plan to bring that back to the park once it's ready to do so. The other events we're going to have happen in Uptown, the pub crawl, Eat, Drink, Be Marion, will be going on this year, July 8th. We're excited to bring that one back. We will have an option to do an at-home kit again this year. We did the pub crawl at home, which was wildly successful last year. So we're going to try to, it is a fundraiser, so we are going to try to beat that record this year with an in-person event. Record in fundraising, not record in amount of people showing up, but record in fundraising. We are going to put some events on the calendar that we haven't had in the past. Like I said, just to keep people coming down here during construction. Maybe that looks like celebrating the milestones of the construction. We're still working through what those events look like with Amber and her team with the city. But we do have a lot of new restaurants and stores opening up this year. So I want to encourage everyone to keep an eye out for those. The Friday ice cream shop should be opening within the next month, French fry and ice cream. And the Hipster is working away. They're renovating the old Ramsey's space to have a new, really cool upscale restaurant. And a couple we can't mention just yet, but we're excited for those announcements to come out later this summer and have some new businesses in Uptown later this fall. And I do also want to mention, we did a survey in 2019 of the Uptown businesses, asking what their number one thing that they want to see in Uptown was, whether that be more events, more amenities, what did they want to see? We left it pretty open, and the number one thing they wanted to see was the streetscape. So when even though it is going to be a frustrating time for a lot of businesses and customers alike, this is really, really needed to upgrade our historic infrastructure to be up to par and last for the next 50 plus years.
No, thank you for that, Brooke. I think, like you mentioned, it's an exciting time, but also understanding that we're also navigating through a time where there is some uncertainty with this pandemic, derecho recovery, and then, like you said, throwing streetscape on top of it. We just got to keep in mind that we've got some great local businesses, whether it be for food, but also just shopping. I know I've been specifically trying to not hit that Amazon buy now button, right? And think about who locally I can, help infuse some local dollars into. So that's a great point, and appreciate that. So thank you. And I know the last thing that I kind of wanted to touch on, I know Amber did a little bit. Let me pull up my link here. We have this staycation, daycation, playcation that I know that the city, Amber and Tammy, Brooke, that you guys kind of worked together, I want to say last July, if I'm remembering the timing correctly, to really, make it be known that we have awesome things going on in Marion, whether it be these events, which is great, but also just every day there's, different things you can be visiting, different things you can be doing. So the idea was to put together, if let's have a day, have a daycation with your family. Okay, well, maybe we want to do something a little more on the play side. That's where that playcation came from, right? And the staycation as well, as far as if you have people coming. Thank you, Amber. If you have people coming into town as far as things to do. So maybe you three, just to throw that out there, maybe have you guys talk a little bit more about this process and putting it together, and maybe if there's a plan to continue to, update as we go, and we know that, there's new businesses, restaurants, whatever it is, and new attractions coming to Marion. So maybe just talk a little bit about what went into this and kind of the idea behind it, and then maybe the plan going forward to keep it fresh. As I just think it's a great way, being a lifelong and Marion resident and Marion High School alum, I think it was fun for me just to look through and realize all the great things that maybe I hadn't even thought about to make sure that I'm taking advantage of. So I'll be quiet for a second, let you guys jump in here and take it away on this topic.
I can speak a little bit to this. So Amber and her team have done a really great job of putting this together, and I think it just speaks to some of those things in our community that we forget that we have. And so one of the big pushes for last year was becoming a tourist in your own community and really exploring what you have within Marion. So just little reminders for local residents to go check out the local businesses and maybe visit a place they haven't visited in a while. We talk a lot about how when we hear residents say, oh, I haven't been to Uptown in a while, now there's so many cool new things that are down there. That makes us feel good because those people are going to be our best supporters and our best marketing of the community is when you have your own community residents telling other people about it. So this is a piece that we wanted to make not just for Marion residents, but also tourists from Prospect Meadows or anyone coming into town that wants to know what there is to do.
I want to echo something that Brooke just touched on, and that is using our own community members as ambassadors. And just thinking through when you are trying to get food on a Saturday, that there's a baseball tournament and you're frustrated, just kind of changing your tone a little bit and maybe being a little more welcoming to those visitors to our community, and just talking with them. Where are you from? What are you here doing? That's something that our tourism committee has talked about a lot, is just really creating that ambassador feeling with using our residents to do that. And so part of these itineraries is just make yourself aware of all the great things there are to do here in Marion. So often when we have a free day, we're wanting to figure out where we can go or travel, and kind of just we look past what we have right here under our noses. So that was pretty much the intention of these itineraries, especially at a time last year when we're not bringing a whole lot of people into our community. There was opportunity to take time to explore what you have.
We also want to use these to create ambassadors out of our shops. So when you come for your dentist appointment down the street, you're pointed to a store or a restaurant afterwards, to give them some materials to be able to be those brand ambassadors for our community. But also just some training for our residents and for our business owners that when you're frustrated, you want to complain, come complain to us and not your customers, because we want people to keep coming back. So we joke about putting, office of complaints on the window, but we do want people to have a good representation of our community, and it takes everyone to do that.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. I did share that in the chat, and I will make sure to follow up afterwards with everyone as we usually do, and make sure that we get all these links to everyone, whether it be these event calendars or resources for our urban forestry program, and then resources, like I said, for this staycation, playcation, daycation. Just continue to share those with your network and make it be known that there are great things going on in Marion, and whether it be these events or just everyday things, let's get out and support local. And I know we've really tried to take that on personally and maybe professionally more than ever. But let's keep that frame of mind going forward. Any comments, questions? I know we have just a couple minutes here, so just want to make sure I at least stopped one more time as far as just getting any comments, questions, et cetera, from the group here, and just provide that opportunity one last time.
The AARP senior trikes are available for rent at the YMCA if you know anyone 55 and older.
Yes, Brooke, gotta plug that grant you wrote, right? So we appreciate that and the partnership with Iowa Big and the Y and all that. So I know that's an exciting thing too. So we'll, trying to get my grandparents out there. They've known about it and, just got to get them over that fear, right? Of this new technology, as they call it. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lon, Amber, Tammy, Brooke. Appreciate everything you guys do, not just for the city and this community, but for me here as a new member of Medco. You guys have been very welcoming and appreciate the partnerships that I've been able to establish. But we're lucky to have you guys here on behalf of the city of Marion and the Chamber of Marion. Can't thank you guys enough and say enough good things. So again, let's get out, support Marion this summer. Looking forward to seeing everyone out and about and enjoying some good food, good music, good events, right? So let's get out and support. And thanks again, everyone. And enjoy the sunny. I guess the sun went away now. Of course, it's Iowa, right? We just have to wait for that to happen. So appreciate it again. Thank you. We'll talk to everyone again soon.